Although you'll be receiving valuable advice from our host, please remember this is not therapy. It does not replace a relationship with a qualified mental health professional.
I'm Dr. G, and we're here again with Engaging Minds. As you know, every week we're on air looking at news that affects us from a deeper, more, what I like to call sort of more substantial point of view. And tonight we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to talk about making it in Hollywood. I know there's a lot of people out there, a lot of my audience, people that are thriving and trying to find a break in Hollywood. And I thought about it, and what I thought one of the best ways to find out how to do that is to bring on three accomplished people who will also tell their stories of success, but also some of their creative endeavors they're doing, and we're going to have a lot of fun with that tonight. So my three guests are Scott Takeda. He is an actor, writer, producer. Joseph Lyle Taylor, also an actor and producer. And Lili Bordan, an actress and upcoming producer. I want to welcome them all to the show. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk to each person individually, get a sense of their career. Again, like I said, what they're doing right now, what their basic feeling is about, quote, making it in Hollywood and how to gain success. So I'll deal with them each individually, and then we're going to break up into a panel discussion for the rest of the show. And as audience members, you're welcome to call in. Our number is 1-800-222-5222. As I said, that's 1-800-222-5222. And with that, we're going to get started. So Lili, it's a pleasure to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be on the show.
And of course, we have to be gentlemen here and start with ladies first.
I really appreciate that, guys.
Lili, tell me a little bit about your career. You have a very interesting background, where you've come from, what your experience is like in Hollywood, and what special project you're working on right now.
Well, right now I'm waiting for a handful of films that are in various stages of post-production and distribution to come out. The one that came out last week is called Live or Die in La Honda, which is an independent feature that I played the lead of. We filmed it in La Honda, and it came out across all the
Can you give me a
platforms.
sense or share with our audience what the storyline is and what your character was?
Yeah, so it was Romeo and Juliet tale set in the Redwoods. And I play a woman who runs Applejacks, which is an actual historical landmark in La Honda. It's a town of... It's a village of like 500 people. Okay. It's on your way across the mountain into Silicon Valley, basically. But it's this little pocket. It's a very isolated part of that part of the state. And I play a bartender and bar owner, former Marine, psychopath. Thick tendencies, I have
a feeling that's going to be the theme of our show PTSD. Around when you get to meet the other characters tonight, the other special guests.
There is a running theme here.
Maybe it has to do with what's going on in the country, but that's a whole other show.
Yeah, so that came out on Amazon and iTunes and a bunch of other platforms. And then I've got Book Club coming out, which is a feature with Diane Keaton, Jane Fonda, Mary Steenburgen, and that comes out May 18th in movie theaters.
And tell us a little bit about your character in that film.
I actually play. The name of my character is Irene, but I want it to be a surprise what my character does and is. But I can probably say that most of my scenes are with Mary Steenburgen.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this concept of success, because one of the things I found as a psychologist working with a lot of creative people, a lot of actors, people think that, once they get their success, that it's all over and then it's easy for them. And I actually find that the opposite is true, that success can cause a lot of anxiety and fear in people, because they then start to realize they have to keep it up. They have to be able to find ways of dealing with this sort of new world that they're in. Mm-hmm. So I know you have an interesting background, where you were born, where you come from. So I wonder if you can share that with our audience and how you've dealt with your success.
Sure. So dealing with success is often as challenging as dealing with a lack of it.
Exactly.
I know I've had moments of success where I've felt like let down a little bit, and then So since that happened to me, I've just focused on being grateful and appreciative of the successes that I do have, and being able to identify, okay, am I at a good point in my life right now, or am I not where I want to be, and being able to accept both of those answers, yes or no.
I think that's great. One of the, I know, I'm just thinking of someone I'm working with right now, and he always he says an interesting thing as an actor. I'm going to ask our panel this too. He said, I can have a vision of where I want to see my career go, but a lot of time it depends on what jobs I get. So where does that come into play about having a vision and being practical? So I'm curious if you could comment on that.
Well, if I understand your question correctly, like,
let me clarify. There's two processes. One is you just kind of take the work that you get.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
and the other is you have sort of a vision of your career.
Right.
How do you put the two together?
Well, I'm learning that right now, actually. So it's a very poignant question for me. But I have, struggle with sort of, do I take everything that comes along? I've passed up on things that I've regretted. And then at the end of the day, I just, make the best choice with what I have at the moment, and then hope that it's, it's for the best. And I do find respite in this concept that I believe in, that whatever projects I end up doing are because I'm meant to do them.
So you make peace with those projects.
I have. There's no other way.
I agree with that. Since we started earlier on talking about psychopathic killers, I thought we could introduce Joseph Lyle Taylor. Not that he himself is a psychopathic killer.
I am.
You are.
That's my day job.
Oh, okay. And I hate to ask what your night job is then.
The same.
Oh, okay. Joseph, I know the reason I brought that up is that you play a psychopathic killer for hire, Frank Hooper, opposite Giovanni Ribisi in Amazon's series Sneaky Peek. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that experience.
Sure. I was lucky enough to get a call last year from Graham Yost and the executive producers of Sneaky Pete, and I'd worked with them on Justified in 2010, 2011. And so I got a call, and they said, hey, would you like to fly yourself to New York? We don't have any money, and we can't put you up, but we'd love for you to come do the show. I said, well, that sounds great. I'll go.
Right. How many times have actors heard that?
Yeah, you hear it, And so I went, and that was in the last episode of season 1. And then in season 2, they offered me a deal, and so they flew me out, put me up, and paid me a little bit, so it was great. And so, it's been aired for, I guess it started airing in March 9th, I think it was. So I think I can tell at least a bit of the first episode. So I get the script, and Frank is just very, very dark. He's a very dark, complicated man. And so they're looking for $11 million that Giovanni's mother has. They need it. They got hired by John Ailes' character. So we end up in a hotel room, and the two kids are pickpocket kids, right? And so they're trying to chase me down. They found me in the hotel. I capture them. I pull Giovanni in, and I say, you got to choose now, because I guess my story is a little bit complicated. I should set it up a little bit better, but I end up stabbing this kid.
Okay.
And so when I'm reading the scene, it's phenomenal. It's just one of these roles that you don't come along. It's just this crazy sort of beauty and this violence. So being able
to really step up to that, knowing that these roles don't really come along very often. So
I call Graham, email Graham Yost, and I'm like, hey, thanks. Thank you for this seriously beautiful, violent scene. you know. And then we get, and Adam Arkin shot it, and so it really turned out really nice. It's
so you bring up a great point. We have about a minute left, and Scott, we're going to get to you right after the commercial and start with you. But this concept of sort of what Lili said too about recognizing when something special comes your way, being grateful for that, and really seizing the moment, so to speak. That has a lot to do with how people deal with success. I think you know yourself well enough to know this is a really good experience. I better take advantage of it.
Well, yeah, because you don't often get opportunities that are quite that strong, that good and strong character.
With that, we're going to take a break.
Yeah.
We'll get back to it after the commercial, but I wanted my audience to hear that too, is that when an opportunity comes your way, take advantage of it. I'm Dr. G. If you want to call in, it's 1-800-222-5222. We'll be back right after the commercials. Scott Takeda, and you're an actor, writer, producer, director, and tell us all about it.
A lot of hyphens on there.
A lot of hyphens,
Yeah.
and one time you were a reporter, so
Yeah.
I know that too.
TV news reporter.
So tell us a little bit about what's going on in your life right now.
Wow. We, as a director, we had a film recently premiere at the Denver Film Festival. And and that's right now in the festivals right now. We're in production right now for our next film. So we're doing that. As a actor, I'm flying all across the country. And
can you share what that film is with our audience? The name of it and
the film
that you're directing?
that we're directing right now is called Remembering Me.
Okay.
And I'm co-directing with my lovely bride, Lori K. Allred, who is also co-writing. And then I'm also flying all across the country as an actor. I know I've got an episode on FX's The Americans. I think that's going to be coming out in a couple weeks. Man in the High Castle on Amazon sometime this spring, I think, is coming out.
Okay.
I think in the summer we've got Drunk History. Was very fortunate to be on a film called The Tale that premiered at Sundance that HBO Films purchased. We have no idea when that's going to be out. And then I'm currently recurring on a TV show that I cannot say anything about.
Okay, is that the name of the show? I cannot say anything.
It is exactly. Oh no!
So
I violated my NDA.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Okay, you didn't hear that. Since we're talking about success, and everyone's been getting their comments about it, and how you sort of manage, as we can see, such a busy career, I'm wondering. And it won't be a secret after this, if you could tell us your secret as to how you keep it all going.
Oh, wow. I think lack of sleep is one of the ways. I like to say that I even though technically I reside in split time between LA and Colorado, I like to joke that I actually reside and live on a United jetliner because it seems like I'm constantly flying. Flew in today for this. So,
well, thank you very much.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Appreciate it.
I think one of the things that I've been able to at least be able to find a little balance in life is, I think, yoga. A little bit of meditation sometimes helps. Certainly being able to, when I'm not on a United jetliner, be able to hang out with the family back at home is also nice too.
I think that's great advice. What Scott is telling everyone out there is that it's important to lead some sort of balanced life. And the idea that you're actually directing something with your, did you say your fiance?
My lovely bride.
Your lovely bride. That in itself has got to be a very interesting experience.
It is. It's an autobiographical story. So we're kind of telling the story. As filmmakers, we tend to pull from our own lives. Well, I'm not speaking for every filmmaker out there. As for Lori and myself, my lovely bride, Lori, we tend to pull from our own lives. And this is a particular story that we're kind of pulling from our own lives as a couple.
And with that, I want to go back to Joseph for a moment, since we're talking about psychopathic killers. I wanted to, you talk about pulling from your own life and your personal experience and how you create roles like that. You had mentioned that in playing a psychopathic killer, your first episode, you had to kill a child.
Well, he wasn't quite a child. He was 20-something.
20-something, okay. But I asked you, and I want our audience to know, sort of as a joke, what that experience was like for you as an actor, and what any therapist would want to know, like what came up for you.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to sort of delve into it because you have to get into the headset of what your character's doing, and a lot of it is carried by the writing. But to fake kill someone is a real sense of power. You know, you just get this sense of you are dominating, taking somebody's life. You know, and of course, I think of like that scene with Sopranos. What was his name? The guy who ran the Sopranos. Who was the Jim? Anyway, I'm forgetting his name, but there's a scene whenever he's in True Romance, and he says to the woman he's killing, he says, you know, the first person you kill, it hurts. The second person, you know, you feel a little something. By the time you killed your third person, it's like, you know, changing your shoes or something like that. You know, I felt my guy had done it a few times, so it was
more routine.
Kind of by rote, but you know, there was that, you know, real sense of power in it.
Well, I'm thinking about what you said, and as someone who's, I mentioned, I taught some courses in this about working with filmmakers dealing with issues like killing or psychopathic killers. In Dexter, a lot of times we understand that his process is by the time he kills someone, he actually ends up at peace. It's like the killing brings him together and actually unifies his personality and makes him feel whole. So psychologically, that's an interesting experience for him too, that he does that in order to relieve anxiety and to center himself.
Yeah. As an actor, I've never had to do something like that, so it's fascinating to listen to both of you talk about that.
No, I'm wondering actually if Scott and Lili can share their experience as actor and actress, where they've had to pull from their own personal experience to play a role and what effect it had on them. So, Lili, could you answer that question that I put you on the spot with?
I mean, things like I obviously haven't killed anyone, and I live by do no harm, and I try to be as gentle on myself and the people around me as possible. And sometimes that takes a concerted effort in this stressful world today. But you do have to find the psychology behind the motivation behind
every action.
Mm-hmm. You do. And so as Joe was saying, you know, what he was so honest about it, you know, that gave him a sense of power to step into that role. I mean, yeah.
Is there a role that you've done, not necessarily about killing someone, where you felt like you had to dig deeper and step into the character and find those pieces within yourself?
Yeah.
Is there something you feel comfortable in sharing with us?
I'm trying to think of, I mean, I guess just because the movie just came out, it's on my mind, but Live or Die in La Honda.
Okay, great.
She's, you know, we didn't really discover that what was motivating her till like around midway through the film, when there was a scene where I thought, oh, this is maybe where she could have a little breakdown, and, you know, maybe this is a movie about PTSD. And this was actually on our drive up with the lead actor that we started to talk about this, but then we discovered that this is actually what's motivating them, is they're continuing to act as soldiers in a very different environment in this small town of 500 people. So how long can you really do that for? You know, they weren't really living in reality, but they were still in their minds on the killing fields, and they were both dealing with their PTSD.
That's a great concept, that they couldn't actually, like you said, they couldn't actually separate what was going on now.
Right, and they brought it out in each other.
And they brought it out in each other.
So when she calls him to come to La Honda, he hesitates, but he does so because obviously there's something he has to deal with as well.
So there was what we would call a reenactment of a certain experience.
Yes, almost like what you talk about in psychology, which is not role-playing, but what is the name of that therapy where you step into roles? It's like a theatrical kind of...
like...
drama therapy?
Drama therapy, yeah, that kind of thing, where you put one
That's
chair...
what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, we do drama therapy, but we hopefully get paid for it.
Hopefully enlighten people or
and it's always a question, and I want to sort of debate it, is sometimes when you have to dig deep like that, it can be hard on you personally as an actor. And how do you sort of manage to, like we said, keep some sanity in that moment?
Yeah.
So with that, we'll go back to you, Scott. What about yourself? Any roles that you play that you felt were so personal to you that you needed to sort of find those pieces within yourself and then find a way to express it?
You know, I had the chance to listen to Kevin Bacon speak at one point, and he was saying, and I think other drama coaches have said this too, that within all of us is the world's worst mass murderer, as well as the ability to be like Mother Teresa. We have both the lightest of the light and the darkest of the dark that resides within any of us, and depending on the particular situation you as a person find yourself in, that can come out. And I think so, as it's my job, I feel as an actor, to place my character, myself, my very being within their particular realm, and to find the humanness, the story that my character would be in, and how they would respond or react, and whether or not that's pulling from my own personal life and my own experiences, or if it's kind of imagining what it would be like to be that way. I feel like that's part of my job.
And with the time, we're going to take a break in a minute. We can address this afterwards, but what I wanted our audience to hear is how all three of you have a sense of your craft and how you dig deeper, how you play it. And I think the more you can get in touch with that process, in some ways, the more you can thrive in Hollywood, because you understand what you're doing and you understand how to portray that character and separate it from yourselves. So that's a great insight I wanted to share with our audience. With that, we're going to take a break. Again, that number is 1-800-222-5222. After that, we'll be back talking more about thriving in Hollywood. Talk about what's going on sort of politically in Hollywood and how it affects you as artists. So we'll go through our list. The first question, Lili, I'm going to ask you is the hashtag #MeToo movement, and how, you know, as a woman, how you feel it's affecting you or your career, etc.
This is one thing I haven't really formed a solid opinion on, but it's a movement that's happening. And as a not really practicing, but Buddhist from the soul, so to speak, I believe it's happening for a reason, and I definitely don't think, you know, it's. I think it's probably going to be easier to be a woman in Hollywood, just because of all the stuff that's been kind of brushed under the rug, and we've all been complicit, you know, I think. So we've all let it happen. We've all, you know.
So I think what you're saying to us
sort of
is
accepted it as just, you know, how it is.
Right.
And so when it all came to a head, it's just that pendulum that swings, and now it's just, you know, we've had enough, and what is it, time's up, and all that. And
yeah, I think what happens with these movements a lot of times is it brings to consciousness stuff that was already there, and then we start focusing on it. So I like what you said when you said, I'm just starting to form, you know, I'm in the process of understanding it and formulating my opinion. Yeah. I was also wondering what our gentlemen feel about that as actors in Hollywood, how you think it might affect your careers. So, Scott?
You know, I actually don't know. I do feel like this is it's a positive movement. I think anytime you can have awareness about things that have been going on that people have worked very hard to keep hidden, I think shining light and bringing stuff out in the open is always a positive thing. I think even, you know, psychologically speaking, that's you know, coming to terms and being honest and truthful is a good thing.
Yeah, it's interesting what happens in Hollywood, that the sort of the feeling's already there, and because Hollywood is in focus, a lot of times it brings to the surface something that maybe socially we've been already dealing with, and it puts the focus on that issue. I'm wondering, Joseph, what your thoughts are around it.
Well, I think you were basically talking about abuse of power, you know, and it's across the board. I mean, it's, you know, you look at our government right now, you look at what's going on with the Republican movement, and you look at, I mean, I guess you could look at capitalism in the same way. Here are, groups of massive corporations who are just, exercising their power over the rest of the people. And, Harvey Weinstein and the guys who wield a lot of power in this town take advantage of that.
Do you think that it will make, again, as Lily said, it's the beginning of the movement, even though we've all been conscious of it. Do you think it'll have an effect, or will it fade away? Do you have any?
I think we've had enough, really. You know what I mean? I think we finally had enough. I think we've had enough across the country. And we'll see how it plays out in November. And we'll see if we'll be able to get a fair vote, if we'll get our counted, have our voices heard across the country and in this town. And but I think it's time now.
No, I think so too, because you know what? It also spurs other movements to happen. We saw what recently happened with the kids at Parkland, how I think one thing has an effect on the other, and it sort of brought them unified because we saw these other movements starting to happen.
And again, we're looking at power. You look at the power of the NRA, you look at the power of ALEC, and you look at the power of these people who are abusing the system.
So do you think it's possible to have power and not abuse the system?
I do. FDR had power. He didn't abuse the system. You look at Nancy Perkins, and you look at people who actually care about their fellow human being. I think they use their power wisely. I think it's easy to abuse it,
I think it is easy to abuse it, too. It's part of human nature. Another movement, Scott, that we see a lot is this, we've been seeing a lot in Hollywood, is diversity. The concept of, diversity in Hollywood. So as an Asian American actor, I'm curious how that's affected you.
Great question. I don't quite know.
Okay.
I think it's still kind of a new thing.
You have to know, or you're off the show.
Gosh darn it! I guess I'm off the show. So it's
the actor formerly known as.
The actor formerly known as.
No, go ahead.
But for me, it's been an interesting experience. I'm still fairly, I think, new in the career. So a lot of the stuff that's been happening is, for me, it's now become the norm. All these movements are kind of the norm for me, because I have very, very little history prior to that. Certainly, as long as opportunities continue to come available for the most qualified people, and that we're able to have diverse voices, I think. Obviously, it works for me, but I think it works for everyone. I think to have diverse voices, to have a lot of different stories, to have greater understanding of our world is all a positive. So hopefully we all benefit.
I agree with that. I'm curious because I think about what Joseph said about using power sort of in a positive way, and I think diversity, if we could be open to it and accepting of it, can also teach us how to be more empathetic and understanding to other people, and that's a powerful way to use our power.
And I think kind of what's going on, if we were to take a look at this polarization that we have going on, not just in our country but around the world, is it's a lot of people just saying, but my way is this, and this is what I think. And I think at a certain point, a solution to this polarization, because the only thing that happens with polarization is you get more polarized or you can get less polarized. And I think by being able to share that we all are the same, that we all come from a similar experience, no matter what it is, we both have two eyes and a nose. And
to share Lily's experience of being a Buddhist, that we all come from the same sense of consciousness.
We're all one.
Right.
And I think to be able to have these diverse voices helps.
So, Scott, I'm going to ask you a question since you mentioned our political situation. Joe, sorry. Since you mentioned our political situation as an actor in Hollywood, do you feel it's having an effect on the psyche of Hollywood, what we're dealing with right now in our country and in sort of creativity, the films that are chosen, et cetera, like that?
You mean in the age of Trump?
Yeah.
Well, we look at Roseanne, and she had 18 million viewers. I think they had a real big viewership and big ratings. Trump boasted about that, because he is,
he's a Trump supporter.
Yeah, he's a Trump supporter, and good on him. Yeah, I do. I mean, I've been watching Homeland. I don't know if you guys are following Homeland, but their whole storyline is Russian interference in our election and in our government. So we'll see what Mueller has. Eventually, I guess something's going to come out, and I mean, I'm surprised, and I think we'll see what comes out this fall. On the new television shows, how many FBI shows there are, how much political atmosphere is sort of brought to the television, and we'll see how it is. But I think, our business reflects the times, and I think we'll continue to see that.
Lili, any thoughts on that? I see you shaking your head.
Well, I guess going back to what you were saying about the kids marching on Washington, I think you're right. I think all of a sudden people are realizing, oh, wow, I have a voice and my voice matters, and I have an outlet to voice my opinion and my feeling. And if I've had enough of something, I'm going to speak out against it. And, that's the force of...
Maybe that's the positive side of when people get so polarized or they get so frustrated. We see these young kids who are incredible, coming out and being so powerful. Right,
and they're not. I don't think they're. I think if anything, they're just what I heard from their voices wasn't really polarity. It was just
passion.
And saying, we don't want to get shot at, and we don't need automatic rifles, and it's also, for me it's been, and I don't form opinions because I feel like everything is so amorphous in this world and always shifting, and so I like to think that I'm a critical thinker, and so I like to hear all sides and weigh before I form any sort of type of opinion. And, with a lot of this stuff, like guns and, people, I agree with Scott that it's not black and white, and it's not one way or the other. There's different shades in between, and so I just hope that the trend won't be so much that it'll be to kind of dissect things more and chew them over.
Yeah,
something that'll lead to some sort of consensus.
Right, and I'm thinking about I agree with you. I'm thinking about what Joseph said too, is that it'll be interesting to see, given what's going on in this country right now and in the world, what kind of stories Hollywood comes up with now, and how the stories are effective. And obviously, as people who are telling stories, it's going to affect you a lot as an actor, to be able to tell these stories. So I think it's an interesting time.
Yeah, and stories that matter. Now people want to hear, because in the news, it's all things that matter. I mean, it seems like everything carries so much weight now. It's like,
Yeah.
So it's going to be reflected. It's going to be reflected in the content that's made as well.
Yeah,
it's already starting to happen.
I see. Again, I'm going to go to Scott. We have a couple minutes left. I see you nodding your head, so I'm wondering if you could share your thoughts before we go to commercial.
Well, no, I also think that one of the things that Hollywood does very well is it entertains. Mm-hmm. And, I think about how, like, during World War II, how Hollywood kind of provided escapism, because every day the stories coming across the headlines back then were really depressing. And I think it doesn't really matter where on the political spectrum you're at right now. It's rather hostile wherever you look. And I think it might be interesting to kind of see or you're going to start seeing more of a form of escapism within our industry.
Yeah, also a form of escapism, but also I think a social voice that's going to come out too. Exactly. I think you might experience both. We're going to stop for a break, and when we get back, I want to give everyone a chance to talk a little bit about more of their career in our final segment. But one of the things that I think is important, in quote, going with this, what the show is about thriving in Hollywood, is to find your voice and be able to find a way to interpret that in the roles that you're playing. It might be very subtle, but it's going to give you a certain point of view, and I think it's important for actors out there and artists to be able to do that. One of the questions I got several times during the week, because people send in email questions as they know that the show's going to come up, but they sort of wanted to know, what is the secret of making it in Hollywood. And another question I get a lot, and you can crosstalk here. There is no secret.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah. And the other question I get a lot, how long?
Give up the secret now.
I know, really. And you've heard it first on the Dr. G show.
I wish I knew that.
And the other question I get a lot is, and I get this from patients too, is they ask me, how long should I give it? How long should I give my career? I've been at this for 6 months and I don't have my own show yet.
Oh, when that's over.
And even though we laugh, this is really a big question.
Serious.
And it's serious but interesting that I wonder if people would say that if they were a doctor or like myself, where you go, it takes 10 years to get a PhD, how long would I give it? Somehow, maybe because there isn't a given process in Hollywood. Like if you become an attorney or a doctor, you do an internship and you follow a certain path. If you want to become an actor, there's no path to follow except maybe get your training down and then be intuitive about what you do. So actually, this is a question I'm going to ask. So just go for it, you guys.
If I may.
Sure, absolutely.
I do a thing with Bobby Moresco, and he's a 2-time Oscar winner. He runs a thing called the Actors Gym. And a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, someone asked, how long did it take you to get there? And he thought about it for a second. He said about 24 years. So Bobby Moresco, a 2-time Oscar winner, it took him about 24 years. So about 24 years.
I had a similar thing like that. A patient asked me recently, he said, I want to be a therapist. How long does it take? I said, well, to get from that side of the couch to this side of the couch is about 15 years.
Yeah. Well, and
then when is it done? Like, what is this concept
it's never done.
of making
it's done when you can't do it anymore,
Yeah.
Scott, you were going to...
Well, and I think using the analogy as far as, a doctor or a lawyer, I mean, there is, at least in this mindset, people understand, I need to do the LSATs or the MCAT or whatever it is, and you have to go through all this training. And yet somehow there's this mindset, I can just, I can act and it'll happen automatically. And it is like becoming a doctor. And I think there are some levels of acting that is very similar to building any kind of career. I'm kind of on career number 4 right now. And you do have to have the entry-level jobs. If it's television, you have to have the smaller roles or the co-star roles, and then you kind of build up to guest star and recurring and series regular. So there is this kind of stepping stone that you need to go through, but I don't know if there's necessarily this understanding within the world that there is this kind of entry-level jobs and build your way on up.
Well, because also sometimes as an actor, you can see someone who's, quote, unknown end up starring in a role and becoming a hit. And you won't really get that as a doctor. It doesn't matter what you do; you have to follow a certain path.
And I think there's the saying, an overnight success
is 25 years,
29 years in the making.
Right.
So that may be an actor that just explodes on the scene, but you have not seen the previous 9 years of hard study and training and everything that's gone into that.
And also, you could explode on the scene as a teenager and be an actor, and that may be the height of your career.
Exactly.
So different careers tend to happen at different times. I'm wondering what other people think about this concept of making it and being an overnight success.
Well, I think I trained in New York for 12 years, or what? I think I moved there in '86, and the first paying gig I got was '93, and then after that it was another 4 years or 3 or 4 years before anything, and I didn't make any real money until 2000. Where I got a series regular on a Sidney Lumet show for a couple of years. That lasted a couple of years, and then it got canceled because of inner turmoil at the network. And, then it was another couple of years, banging around, doing small things here and there, doing theater. And
so I think it's really important. It isn't the trajectory isn't linear. It's like all over the place.
Yeah, it's more like
it's messy.
Yeah,
it's just like life.
It's like life, yeah.
So finding ways to survive during those times. So as I'll share with our audience, you mentioned at one of our breaks that sometimes you have to take you flew yourself out to to take a role that they said there's no money, no time.
Yeah, I mean, you do that. I was shooting a movie in Vancouver at the time, so it wasn't so horrible, and I had points, so it didn't cost me that much. And I had friends in New York, and somebody put me up, so it worked out okay for me. But, it could have cost me more to get there than I made on the show.
I have a friend. I'm going to share a little anecdotal story. His name is William Luce. He's a well-known playwright. He wrote The Belle of Amherst, and he also wrote a play called Barrymore, which was a one-person show with Christopher Plummer.
Great.
And he told me, he said, I couldn't get my agents, and this is a well-established actor, he said, I couldn't get my agents to get him to see the play. He said, so I got on a plane, and you said points. He said, I got on a plane with points, and I knew where he was staying at a hotel, and I sat in that lobby for hours till he came through and then walked up to him and introduced myself.
To Christopher Plummer?
Yeah, and gave him the script.
Wow. Bold.
So that's how bold he was and determined, and this is someone who was established. So taking risks, never stop. And Lili, your advice to the young actor or older actor who wants to, sort of make it, and how much time to give?
Yeah, I don't know. I've been in LA for 10 years, but I started acting in Budapest I had gone back just to explore my roots, and then I was doing theater in Budapest and Prague, and I ended up staying for a few years because there was so much work, because there were so many things shooting in Budapest. So it was a great way to build my credits. So if you can, find work where you are, produce your own work, find friends, make your own stuff just to build a reel. A friend of mine I worked with a couple of years ago in Canada, he's a Canadian actor, very well established there. I said, why haven't you ever come out to LA? And he said, well, it's not a party that you crash, I'm told. And I said, well, I crashed it. And, I regretted it a bunch of times. And then a bunch of times I've been rewarded for being bold and doing that. I still don't know if I can say that I've made it. I mean, I'm working on wonderful things with wonderful people, but I still don't feel like I can just sit back and have a cigar and just, chill. I'm always
I don't
working.
know if that ever goes away.
I mean, even if you're in the industry for 25 years and you feel like you've won all these awards, and then you might wonder, is my career on its tail end? So it's like, there's...
Well, it goes to that original concept of interpreting what your success is.
Right. And so that's why I'm going to be Buddhist again and say, you've got to find the joy in every moment. And I really commend Joe for
finding the joy of being a psychopathic
for flying
killer.
himself to be a psychopathic killer in New York.
Yes, no, I really appreciate it. Better you acted out on the stage.
What?
No, I was joking.
Oh.
No, because you made a joke before that's your night job or something like that.
Oh, yeah, the murderer.
Yeah.
Psychopath killer.
So with the time that we have, I want to just go around. Sometimes I have found that people have something that they really want to share with our audience that they haven't had a chance to say. So I want to give you that opportunity. And also, if people wanted to get in touch with you, how could they do so or find out more about your career? We have 2 minutes, so we'll start with you, Scott.
Okay. So if people wanted to find out, there's always this thing called the internet.
Yes.
And the IMDb. You can reach me on Twitter and Instagram at Scott Takeda. And I think that's probably pretty good. And as far as that goes, I don't know if you ever make it.
No, I don't too. I think
I really
you just
hope
keep doing it.
I think the striving is the fun part. So
There you go.
in many ways, I may have a whole bunch of Oscars one day, but I hope I never feel like I've made it.
Well, I think it's that creative process that really is exciting for a lot of artists to always be in it. And Lili, if people wanted to get in touch with you or find out more about your work, how could they do so?
Same. I'm very active on Twitter and Instagram. My name is Lili Bordan, Lili Bordan. You can find me on all of those, and then Facebook as well. And if I were, I guess, what was it to say one thing that I
Yeah, we only have about 30 seconds.
Okay, never mind.
So we're going to go, let's make sure we go to Joe.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, too, at Joseph L. Taylor, I believe. I'm not a big social media guy, but I'd look at it occasionally, and if you got something nice to say, I'll say something nice about you.
And with that, we're going to say something nice about all of you. I want to thank you very much for being on the show. You've shared a lot of great insight with our audience, your own personal stories, and what inspires people. I'm Dr. G. We'll be back next week. If you want to email me, it's drhowardgluss@live.com.